Great. I'm going to go back to now the idea that when you first were elected mayor, you had to work across the aisle. And if you go to Hartford, while the Republicans very well could keep the governor's seat, we are not expected to get control of the legislature. So your ability to work across the aisle will be important. How do you see doing that in Hartford?
Well, I think there's no question that reaching across the aisle is going to be absolutely critical to moving the agenda forward. I had a reputation in the legislature as somebody that could do that worked well with Democrats and Republicans. I had a reputation as sort of being a wildcat within my own caucus, where if I felt strongly about an issue, I was very transparent about it and said, look, I don't agree with you, I'm voting this way with the Democrats. Conversely, if I thought the Democrats were wrong, and I say, look, I'm voting with the Republicans because I put the people of my district first. That's who I work for and who put me in office. And I'm a Republican, but I'm a resident of Connecticut before that. And I had to look at what I felt was the most important issues of the day. So I think that the people there, many of the people, the Democrats in the legislature, are still there and served with me. My office was next to Don Williams, who's the Senate Majority Leader now, and John McKinney, who's a Republican minority leader in the Senate. I worked with pretty much half of the House of Representatives on the Democratic side that's still there. I have connections and certainly relationships that are there to be able to act as an emissary, as somebody that can try to put people together and to make things happen and find some common ground. I think really when you talk to people, regardless of the party affiliation, everybody wants the same thing. The argument is how do you get there, and I think that's what we need to work on.
And you've used the slogan, people over politics. And anybody who knows you knows that that's more than just a nifty phrase. Why were you motivated with this focus and over a decade ago, as I recall, and before it became in vogue to be less political? What does this notion mean to you?
I tell you what it means to me is that every day when I wake up and I walk into the mayor's office, my job, what I'm hired to do, is to work and represent each individual in the city of Danbury, regardless of what party they're in, regardless of what their political persuasion or their political affiliation is. And so if you come to my office, we help you. We help you, solve your problem, fix the issue that you're concerned about as best we can. And then the second piece of that is that, there's no one party has the market cornered on good ideas. There are good ideas all around. And I tend to take a much more pragmatic approach towards government. It's either a good idea or a bad idea. And if it's not a good idea, then obviously don't implement it. But if it's a good idea and it happens to come from the Democrats, we shouldn't shoot it down just because it came from a Democrat. We ought to embrace it. One idea that the Democrats have floated around that I agree with is possibly looking at outsourcing our retail DMV function. In other words, we don't necessarily need all these DMV offices all over the state. We can outsource them to AAA or somebody like that. They can be privatized, the point of contact with our customers, our residents, and we can do all the back shop, all the paperwork as we currently do at DMV headquarters. That's good thinking, and that's a thinking in which we can save the taxpayers money, and we ought to say, that's a great idea, let's incorporate that. And it shouldn't matter, really, where that idea comes from.
Well, we have 3 candidates for governor. We've got Mike Fidelity, Oz Griebel, and of course the endorsed candidate right now is Tom Foley. Would you care to share your view of each of the candidates' strengths?
Sure. Look, as I said at the outset, we're blessed with 3 really strong candidates. Let me start with Ambassador Foley. He specializes in sort of putting things back together and being a problem solver. So I think that will suit him well, and it's a good, solid skill set to have within the office, and certainly will bring that skill set, and also putting a solid team around him to be able to do the things that the administration will need to do. So he brings that to the table. Oz Griebel, is a great guy. I know Oz really well, and we all kind of got very friendly because we were all out on the campaign trail for about 6 months, and we'd be at the same cocktail parties and the same town committee meetings, and we know each other's spiels, and we can, we imitate each other all the time. It's all in good fun. But Oz really has an expertise in economic development, and he's very good in transportation issues and infrastructure issues. Doesn't know a lot about governmental side, so I think that I would compliment him in office because I would sort of the nuts and bolts of, well, okay, how do we get from point A to point B? That's the big idea. Now, how do we make that happen within the organizational framework that we have? So Oz brings that skill. And Mike brings a blend of both public and private experience. People don't know that he's operated a very successful business, Mike Fidelity has, over the years, built one up from the ground up with nothing in his pockets. It's a wonderful, compelling story. I don't think he tells it enough, but he should. So he brings that private sector experience, great management skills, and also has served in the legislature, understands its process, and that's going to be critical, as well as served in the executive branch of the current administration. So he's got positive skill sets as well. So like I said earlier, we're blessed with really 3 strong candidates.
And so then, looking ahead to November, what do you see differentiating your ticket from the Democratic nominee and his compatriot?
Well, here's what's almost comical, right? The Democrats out there, Ned Lamont, by the way, is a born-again, business-friendly, pro-business, fiscal conservative. The stuff that he's been out there talking about is stunning sometimes when you compare that to his run in 2006, where he was as far left as you possibly can go. And so, and Dan Malloy has been very similar in his pronunciations publicly, although Dan has charted to the left to try to woo over the union vote, as well as some of the other constituencies that the Republicans really don't have to worry about. So it's interesting to watch those 2 intersect. I've actually been on panels with them, and I've sat there chuckling back and forth while I'm listening to conservative Ned talk to semi-conservative Dan. Here's the bottom line. They're both articulating Republican ideas and a Republican vision. So if you want a Republican running the governor's office, don't elect a Democrat. Elect the real thing. Elect a Republican that understands what it really means to be fiscally conservative and understands the challenges, and also understands how to make a pro-business environment in this state.
And Mark, I've had the good fortune to know you for over a decade now. I've always been impressed with your efforts to avoid even the appearance of a conflict of interest. Would you care to share your thoughts on ethics in politics?
It's a good question. It's funny because when I took office, we have a code of ethics, and we have a very broad reference in our charter as well. But how does that relate to a practical application on a day-to-day basis? So I put in a rule. It's really simple, and the rule is, and it's served us well over the last 8.5 years, is that if you can eat it, you can keep it. Okay. So let me give you an example. We do a really good job plowing Mrs. Smith Street. She makes some brownies to say thanks to the mayor's office and maybe Public Works. I'm eating those brownies. I'm a brownie hound. I'm eating them. That's just the way it is. I'll share them with everybody, but I'm eating them. That's okay. Mrs. Smith comes in with 2 tickets to the Yankee game. That's not okay. You can't eat it. And so it's a simple policy we put out to all of our staff. Everybody gets it. And we really haven't had any problems, knock on wood, in terms of conflicts or somebody getting themselves into a real ethical jam because of that. So it's worked well.